This has been the week where interesting phone calls, for sure. Today, I was and had the good fortune of being on a call with Senator Ossoff and the FBI. And then the FBI called me again today as I was driving in. Earlier this week, I was on a call with the director of the FBI and Secure Communities Network. And before that, I had other calls from other leaders checking in to see, are we okay? What's going on? And I also received a call from the U.S. Attorney Peter Leary, also checking in on us. It's been quite the interesting week. The sad thing is the reason that they're checking in on us. Of course, there was the horrific incident that happened a few days ago on October 7th in Israel. It goes without saying that the entire Jewish world is deeply shaken up. And if you picked up from the many readings of this evening, I think it's incumbent upon us to keep the Israelis in our thoughts and our prayers, because we are shaken up as well. The truth is that we are deeply shaken to our very core, many of us. The calls that I received, one from a friend who told me that she's now sleeping with a gun in her bedroom. I'm not sure that's gonna help, but she feels compelled to do so. Call from two different friends, one in New York and one in San Francisco, both in academia, who feel as if they're not really safe to speak up and out as Zionists and wanting to support Israel, because they're not exactly safe to do so. We've seen people in the Jewish world be told today that there will be a day of jihad, and therefore more people were concerned about coming to synagogue, not coming to synagogue. And I received two different texts. What's the security situation going to be tonight? Things that I didn't really have to concern myself with a couple of years ago. Always I felt the need for protection, especially in light of what happened in Pittsburgh. But it seems as if it's only gotten worse. And then I learned from the FBI director and that one call that I was on with Secure Communities Network that the numbers from the FBI will be released next week, alerting us to the quantity of anti-Semitic incidents in this country. And of course, as you would expect, the numbers have gone up for the past several years. The chatter online, more anti-Semitic rhetoric, as people are picking up again and again and again misconceptions about the Israeli and Palestinian conflict and what does it really mean. This week we read Parshat Bereshit. It's the very beginning of the entire Torah. We just finished it. We celebrated Simchas Torah last week, many of us did, and of course it was a big celebratory event before we learned about the atrocities that happened in Israel. And now we are starting again, recalling the creation of the world. And what kind of a world has been created? And what kind of a world are we creating? We, after all, are recognized or taught by our tradition as being partners with God. It is incumbent upon us to be partners with God in engaging in acts of tikkun olam. It is incumbent upon us to be partners with God by completing the beginnings of creation. Whether that means the mitzvah of circumcision or the mitzvah of simply being kind to one another, of hachdasat orchim, of doing all of those things that God modeled for us and indicated we were required to do even in the very beginnings of the initial stories of Adam and Eve in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden. We have to ask, what kind of a world are we ultimately creating? In the light of the turmoil and the bloodshed in the Middle East, in the light of all of the fear that many of us in this room are experiencing and some of our friends are also experiencing, we have to take that question a little bit more seriously. I was reminded even earlier tonight when Betty Taylor said out loud that she has to remind herself to be human, because right now it's easy to want to say, I want to blow them up, make sure they don't exist, let's be reactionary, let's do things that in truth, if we were safe and secure and felt better, we wouldn't necessarily even say. Israel right now is calling upon the evacuation of the residents in North Gaza, something that of course pains my heart, because as much as I feel what they are seeing, or I identify with what they're feeling, and they're experiencing this visceral pain of wanting to react, of wanting to fight back, of wanting to scream eye for eye, because after all, that is such a human thing to do. I want to remind us that there are moments when I too have that feeling, but we need to slow down and remember that the death of one person is not going to bring back the death of those who were murdered on October the 7th. It may not even help liberate the ones who are held captive in Gaza right now, and it certainly is not going to make us feel better several months from now or years from now when we look back and ask ourselves, what was I doing in those very moments? Every single one, I believe, in the Middle East, every single person on this planet, maybe even more broad, is created in God's image. And it's easy for us to dehumanize the other right now. But this is where living a spiritual life and having a deep spiritual practice comes into effect. We have to reflexively practice that thing inside that says, they are created in God's image, I am created in God's image. Even though right now, all we can feel is pain and loss and fear and doubt. Doubt even to the safety of the Jewish community and the diaspora, doubt of the safety of the Jews in Israel. But the flip side of doubt is faith. And so I have faith and believe. May God continue to protect us. May God continue to guide our leaders in Israel and around the world for the safety and well-being of all involved.